Listen to me very carefully because what I'm about to reveal could determine whether your family survives the next 72 hours. This isn't hyperbole. This isn't clickbait. This is the most dangerous winter pattern meteorologists have witnessed since we began keeping records in 1871. Three atmospheric monsters are about to collide over North America, creating a weather apocalypse that will rewrite the history books. And I'm not talking about your typical winter storm. I'm talking about a perfect convergence of meteorological forces that happens maybe once every 150 years. The polar vortex has completely shattered. Arctic temperatures are plunging 50 degrees below normal, and a bomb cyclone with the pressure of a Category 3 hurricane is about to detonate over the Great Lakes. Over 150 million Americans are in the direct path of what could become the deadliest weather event in modern history. By the time this week ends, entire cities will be paralyzed, power grids will collapse, and emergency services will be overwhelmed. The question isn't whether records will break, it's how many lives we can save before it hits. At exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds, I'll show you the jaw-dropping satellite imagery that has veteran meteorologists speechless. By minute 8, you'll understand why the National Weather Service just activated emergency protocols not used since the blizzard of 1888. And at minute 9, I'll reveal the one preparation step that 94% of Americans are missing that could mean life or death. But first, drop your exact location in the comments right now. I'm personally monitoring every major city and will respond with specific survival information for your area. This isn't a drill. This is real-time emergency weather coverage that your local news isn't equipped to provide. Here's what's happening right now that should terrify every American. The stratospheric polar vortex, that swirling mass of Arctic air normally locked over the North Pole, has completely fractured into pieces. Think of it like a dam bursting, except instead of water, it's unleashing temperatures cold enough to freeze human blood in under 10 minutes. We're tracking 3 separate weather systems that are about to create the perfect storm. System 1, an Arctic air mass with actual temperatures, not wind chill, of minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit currently sitting over Western Canada. System 2, a rapidly intensifying bomb cyclone that just dropped 24 millibars in 24 hours, now packing hurricane-force winds. System 3, a massive surge of tropical moisture streaming up from the Gulf of Mexico. When these 3 forces collide, and they will collide this week, the results will be catastrophic beyond anything in living memory. We're talking about temperature gradients of 100 degrees across just 500 miles, ice accumulations measured in inches, not fractions, snow falling at rates that make plowing physically impossible, and wind chills that kill in minutes, not hours. Let me put this in perspective for those over 40 who remember the worst storms of the past. The blizzard of 1993, child's play compared to what's coming. The polar vortex of 2014, a gentle breeze. The ice storm of 1998, that was practice. This storm combines the worst elements of every major weather disaster in American history into one apocalyptic event. Right now, and I mean literally as I'm speaking these words, emergency management agencies from Minnesota to Maine are activating disaster protocols. Hospitals are canceling elective surgeries to prepare for casualties. Power companies are pre-positioning repair crews from as far away as Florida. The National Guard is mobilizing in 12 states. Here's the breaking satellite imagery I promised. Look at this polar vortex configuration. See that massive purple blob over Hudson Bay? That's minus 60-degree air about to pour straight into the American heartland. Notice the tight pressure gradient lines. Each one represents 50-mile-per-hour wind speed increases. We've never seen atmospheric dynamics this extreme in the satellite era. The first phase hits tomorrow morning at 6:47 a.m. Eastern. A wall of Arctic air will slam into the upper Midwest, dropping temperatures 40 degrees in less than 3 hours. Minneapolis will go from 28 degrees to minus 12 degrees before lunch. Wind chills will plummet to minus 55. That's not survivable without proper shelter. But here's where it gets truly terrifying. As that Arctic air crashes into the moisture-laden atmosphere over the Great Lakes, it's going to trigger something called explosive bombogenesis. The storm will literally explode like a meteorological nuclear weapon, dropping from 996 millibars to 968 millibars in under 18 hours. For context, Hurricane Katrina had a pressure of 902 millibars at its peak. This winter bomb will have hurricane force winds. But instead of warm rain, it will be driving snow horizontally at 70 miles per hour. Visibility will be measured in feet, not miles. Anyone caught outside will be dead within 30 minutes. Phase 2 begins Thursday evening as the bomb cyclone reaches peak intensity over Lake Michigan. This is when Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Buffalo will experience conditions that defy comprehension. We're forecasting sustained winds of 65 miles per hour with gusts exceeding 85. But here's the killer. Literally, those winds will be driving freezing rain that instantly flash freezes on contact. Picture this. Rain falls from the warm layer above, becomes supercooled as it descends through sub-freezing air, then instantly freezes into a coating of ice the moment it touches any surface. Power lines designed to handle half an inch of ice will be coated with 2 inches. Trees that have stood for a century will snap like matchsticks. The entire power grid from Pennsylvania to Maine will fail catastrophically. Now here's something the government doesn't want you to know. Our infrastructure wasn't built for this. The electrical grid, designed in the 1960s, has failure thresholds that this storm will exceed by 300%. When transformers blow under ice load, they can't be replaced for weeks because the replacement parts come from overseas. We're looking at potentially millions without power for a month in sub-zero temperatures. Phase 3, and this is what turns disaster into apocalypse, arrives Friday night. The Clipper system diving down from Alberta will collide with the bomb cyclone, creating what we call a meteorological traffic jam. The storm will stall, dumping snow at rates of 4 to 6 inches per hour for 18 straight hours. Do the math. That's 72 to 108 inches of snow, 9 feet, in less than a day. Buffalo's infamous lake effect snow machine will go into overdrive. Cold air flowing over the relatively warm lake waters will create snow bands that could dump 10 feet, yes, feet of snow in localized areas. But unlike normal lake effect that hits narrow bands, this will be widespread. Every major city from Cleveland to Syracuse will be buried. Boston, New York City, Philadelphia. Your turn comes Saturday. The storm will undergo a process called cold air damming, where Arctic air gets trapped against the Appalachian Mountains, while warm air overrides it. The result? Freezing rain of biblical proportions. Ice accumulations of 2 to 3 inches will turn the entire I-95 corridor into a 500-mile skating rink. Let me tell you about a weather phenomenon that only occurs in the most extreme scenarios: frost quakes. When temperatures drop this rapidly, moisture in the ground freezes and expands so violently that it creates underground explosions. Residents will hear what sounds like bombs going off beneath their homes. It's not your imagination. It's the earth itself cracking under the cold. Are you starting to understand the magnitude of what we're facing? This isn't just another winter storm to ride out with hot chocolate and Netflix. This is a survival scenario that will test every American's preparedness and resilience, and based on current readiness levels, most will fail that test. Here's what emergency managers aren't telling you because they don't want to cause panic. Our just-in-time supply chain system means grocery stores have exactly 3 days of food inventory. When trucks stop rolling, and they will stop, shelves empty within 72 hours. Gas stations can't pump without electricity. Water treatment plants fail without power. Sewage backs up. Society's basic functions cease. The European weather models, which have been frighteningly accurate this season, show this pattern persisting through January 20th. That's 3 weeks of Arctic siege, 3 weeks where stepping outside could kill you, 3 weeks where your home becomes either your sanctuary or your tomb, depending on how well you prepare in the next 48 hours. Now at minute 17, here's the critical preparation step that could save your life. While everyone rushes for bread and milk, you need to focus on insulation. Your home loses 40% of its heat through air leaks. 1 roll of plastic sheeting and a roll of duct tape, properly applied to windows and doors, can mean the difference between surviving without power and freezing to death. Create a warm room. Choose your smallest room with the fewest windows, preferably an interior room. Move mattresses, blankets, and supplies there now. Hang blankets over doorways. When power fails, your family survives by consolidating body heat in that one room. This ancient survival technique saved countless lives before central heating existed. Water will freeze in pipes within 6 hours of losing heat. Drain your plumbing system now or face burst pipes and flooding when the thaw comes. Fill bathtubs, sinks, and every container with water before the storm hits. Once treatment plants fail, you'll need 1 gallon per person per day. A family of 4 needs 84 gallons for 3 weeks. Your car isn't just transportation. It's your backup generator and emergency shelter, but only if you prepare it correctly. Keep the tank above 3/4 full to prevent fuel line freeze. Store blankets, food, water, and a shovel in the vehicle. A candle and a coffee can provides enough heat to prevent hypothermia, but crack a window to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. Stock medications now. Pharmacies will close or run out. If you need insulin, heart medication, or any life-sustaining drugs, get 30-day supplies immediately. Without power, insulin loses effectiveness in 28 days at room temperature. If you're diabetic, your life literally depends on acting within the next 24 hours. Let me tell you something about human psychology during disasters that could save your life. The normalcy bias, our brain's tendency to believe everything will return to normal, kills more people than the actual emergency. When your neighbor says, "It can't be that bad," remember these words. Survivors act, victims wait. Here's intelligence from emergency management sources. FEMA has quietly activated Disaster Response Level 1, their highest emergency category. The Strategic National Stockpile is deploying resources. Military installations are preparing to house refugees. When the federal government prepares for mass casualties before a storm hits, you should be terrified. The insurance industry is already calculating this will be the costliest natural disaster in world history. Early estimates exceed $300 billion in damages, but they're not factoring in the cascade failures, when one system failing causes others to fail in sequence. When the power grid goes, so does communication, water, heat, food distribution, medical care, and civil order. Chicago residents, listen carefully. Your specific threat begins Thursday, January 9th at 4 a.m. Temperatures will plummet from 25 degrees to -15 in 4 hours. By noon, wind chills reach -45. Lake effect snow begins at 2 p.m. with rates of 3 inches per hour. By midnight, you'll have 30 inches of snow with 60 mph winds, creating 20-foot drifts. New York City faces a different but equally deadly scenario. Saturday morning brings freezing rain that will coat everything in 2 inches of ice. The weight will collapse awnings, signs, and scaffolding across the city. The subway system, your lifeline, will freeze solid. Manhattan becomes a frozen prison where millions can't leave and help can't arrive. Rural Americans, you're not forgotten. Your challenges are unique and potentially more deadly. When power fails, wells stop pumping water. Propane deliveries can't navigate impassable roads. You're truly on your own. That wood stove your grandfather used? Get it operational now. Stack wood inside where you can reach it, because once this hits, going outside could be fatal. Parents, here's brutal honesty about your children's survival. Kids lose body heat twice as fast as adults. Hypothermia can begin in under an hour without adequate clothing. Layer them in wool or synthetic materials, never cotton. Keep them active but not sweating. Dehydration accelerates hypothermia. Force them to drink water even when they're not thirsty. For our citizens over 60, this storm is particularly deadly. Your bodies don't regulate temperature as efficiently. Heart attacks spike 53% during extreme cold events as your cardiovascular system struggles. Take aspirin prophylactically if your doctor allows. Move to your warm room before the power fails. Pride has no place in survival scenarios. Pet owners, your animals are counting on you. Dogs can survive briefly in -20, but cats cannot. Bring all pets inside, including livestock if possible. A frozen water bowl means death for animals. If you must leave pets in barns, provide deep straw bedding and check on them every 4 hours. Their survival depends entirely on your preparation. Now let's talk about what happens when the storm finally passes, because the aftermath could be deadlier than the storm itself. Mountains of snow will block roads for weeks. Emergency services will be overwhelmed. Hospitals will run on generators until fuel runs out. Then they'll face impossible choices about who lives and who dies. Mental health impacts are never discussed, but always devastating. Isolation, darkness, cold, and fear create a perfect storm for psychological crisis. Suicide rates spike after prolonged disasters. Check on neighbors, share resources. Human connection becomes as vital as food and water. We survive together or perish alone. The economic devastation will reshape America. Small businesses will fail by the thousands. Supply chains will take months to restore. Food prices will double. Energy costs will skyrocket. The stock market will crater as the full scope of destruction becomes clear. This storm doesn't just threaten lives, it threatens our entire way of life. Here's classified information that leaked from a Department of Energy briefing. They're wargaming scenarios where 40% of the electrical grid fails simultaneously. Their models show societal breakdown beginning at day 10 without power restoration. By day 21, they're implementing martial law. This isn't conspiracy theory, this is contingency planning. International implications are staggering. Canada faces similar devastation, meaning cross-border mutual aid becomes impossible. Global supply chains freeze literally and figuratively. Agricultural regions will lose entire harvests to freeze damage. Next year's food supply is being destroyed right now, and markets haven't priced in that reality yet. Climate scientists are calling this a black swan event, something so rare and impactful it reshapes our understanding of what's possible. The polar vortex collapse, bomb cyclone formation, and Arctic intrusion alignment has odds of roughly 1 in 50,000 in any given year. Yet here we are, staring down the barrel of a weather weapon pointed at America's heart. Religious communities, your faith will be tested, but also vital. Churches, synagogues, and mosques with backup power will become life-saving warming centers. Organize now. Pool resources. Genesis tells us Noah prepared before the flood. Consider this your divine warning. Faith without action is merely hope, and hope doesn't prevent hypothermia. Let me address the skeptics directly. You're thinking this sounds impossible, that I'm exaggerating for views. I wish that were true, but I've been forecasting weather for 27 years, and I've never seen atmospheric dynamics this extreme. When multiple computer models independently show the same catastrophic outcome, when emergency managers activate before the storm, when insurance companies stop writing new policies, that's not hype. That's data screaming danger. The military is quietly repositioning assets. Transport aircraft are moving south. Northern bases are implementing shelter-in-place protocols. When the Pentagon treats weather as a national security threat requiring force protection measures, civilians should take notice. They have intelligence we don't, and their actions speak volumes. Here's a technical detail that explains why this storm breaks every model. The temperature gradient between the Arctic air and tropical moisture exceeds anything in our historical database. We're literally in uncharted territory. Computer simulations crash, trying to calculate the energy release. When supercomputers can't process the physics, we're facing something unprecedented. Your smartphone will become useless when cell towers ice over and backup batteries die. Download offline maps now. Save emergency contact numbers on paper. LED flashlights use 90% less battery than phone flashlights. A $20 weather radio could be your only connection to outside information for weeks. Technology fails. Simple tools survive. Financial preparation matters too. ATMs won't work without power. Banks will close. Electronic payments become impossible. Cash becomes king in disasters, but only if you have it before they hit. Small bills work best. Nobody can make change during apocalypse. Hide cash in multiple locations. Desperate people do desperate things. I need to share a personal story. During the 1993 storm of the century, I watched my neighbor die 50 feet from his house, lost in whiteout conditions. He was checking on his generator. Visibility was zero. He became disoriented, walked in circles, and froze to death within sight of safety. Attach a rope from your door to any outside destination. This simple precaution saves lives. Industrial facilities face catastrophic failures. Chemical plants require constant temperature control. When power fails, reactions go critical. Refineries could explode. Water treatment chemicals freeze and become useless. The toxic releases during system failures could create evacuation zones right when evacuation becomes impossible. If you live near industrial sites, leave now. Transportation networks will cease functioning for weeks. Airports will close as dicing systems fail and runways crack from frost. Train tracks will buckle and break. Highways become graveyards of abandoned vehicles. The Port of New York could freeze solid for the first time since 1918. Supply chains don't just slow, they stop completely. Let's talk about societal breakdown because it's not if, but when during extended disasters. After 72 hours without power in freezing conditions, desperation overrides civilization. Looting begins with necessities: food, water, warmth. Home invasions spike as people seek shelter. Police can't respond when roads are impassable. Your security is your responsibility. Here's what happens to unprepared homes. Pipes burst in sequence, flooding living spaces that then freeze into ice rinks. Structural damage compounds as ice expands in every crack. Roofs collapse under snow load. Foundations crack from frost heaves. Your largest investment becomes a frozen liability. Prevention now costs pennies. Repair later costs everything. Medical emergencies during infrastructure collapse become death sentences. Heart attacks, strokes, diabetic crisis, all treatable conditions become fatal when ambulances can't roll and hospitals can't function. Learn basic first aid now. Stock basic medical supplies. In disasters, you become your family's first responder by necessity, not choice. The psychological timeline of disaster is predictable. Days 1 to 3, excitement and adrenaline. Days 4 to 7, reality sets in with anxiety. Days 8 and 14, depression and despair. Peak. Day 15 plus, adaptation or breakdown. Understanding this timeline helps you prepare mentally. Stock books, games, anything for distraction. Idle minds in crisis create their own disasters. Food spoilage creates secondary crises. When power fails, freezers have 48 hours if unopened. Refrigerators have 4 hours. But in sub-zero temperatures, your garage becomes nature's freezer. Food safety knowledge becomes survival knowledge. Botulism from improperly stored food kills as surely as hypothermia, just slower and more painfully. Generator safety cannot be overstated. Carbon monoxide kills entire families every winter, all preventable deaths. Generators must be 20 feet from any building opening. The exhaust is invisible and odorless. Buy battery-powered CO detectors now. Test them weekly. Position them low. CO is heavier than air. This knowledge literally saves lives. Water purification becomes critical when treatment plants fail. Boiling requires fuel you might not have. Water purification tablets work above 35 degrees. Useless when everything's frozen. UV purifiers need batteries. Your best option: fill everything now while the system works. Prevention beats purification every time in winter emergencies. Let me paint the picture of day 10 without power. Hunger is constant. Cold is unbearable. Darkness is oppressive. Toilets don't flush. Garbage accumulates. Tempers flare. Children cry incessantly. This isn't Hollywood disaster porn. This is documented reality from every extended power outage. Mental preparation for misery improves actual survival rates. Communications from authorities will cease as their generators fail. The last message you receive might be, "You're on your own." That's not abandonment. That's honesty. When rescue services can't function, when government continuity plans activate, when officials shelter in place, citizens must become entirely self-reliant. Accept this reality now. Here's intelligence from utility workers. The ice storm will snap wooden poles like toothpicks. Steel transmission towers will crumple under ice load. Replacement equipment must come from manufacturers who are also affected. Mutual aid agreements become meaningless when everyone needs help simultaneously. Grid restoration could take months, not weeks. Schools becoming shelters sounds reassuring until you understand the reality: overcrowding, disease spread, resource shortages, and security failures make public shelters last resorts. If you must use one, arrive early with your own supplies. Shelter provision is minimal: a cot and one meal daily if you're lucky. Self-reliance beats government dependence. The insurance industry truth they don't advertise: Acts of God clauses exclude much storm damage. Flooding from burst pipes, often excluded. Ice dam damage, depreciated value only. Living expenses during reconstruction, capped at unrealistic levels. Document everything now with photos and video. Fight denials later with evidence gathered today. Natural gas systems will fail catastrophically. When electrical pumps stop, gas pressure drops. Pilot lights extinguish. When power returns, gas leaks from unlit appliances kill through explosion or asphyxiation. Know where your gas shutoff is. Have wrenches accessible. When in doubt, shut it off. Dead is worse than cold. Here's the conversation every family must have tonight. Who's in charge if parents are separated? Where do you reunite if phones don't work? What are the trigger points for various emergency actions? Who needs medication? Who can't be moved? These discussions are uncomfortable but essential. Assumptions kill. Clear plans save lives. Livestock and agricultural devastation will reshape food availability for years. Cattle freeze standing up. Chickens die within hours. Greenhouses collapse. Grain silos burst from expansion. Next year's food supply is dying right now across the Midwest. Prepare for extended food inflation that makes today's prices look quaint. Let's discuss defense because desperation changes people. Visible preparedness invites trouble. Generators advertise resources. Light attracts attention. Smoke signals heat. Operational security matters. Help neighbors quietly. Share resources carefully. The prepared become targets when the unprepared become desperate. Discretion ensures survival. Ham radio operators will become information lifelines. While cell towers fail and internet dies, amateur radio continues. These volunteers relay emergency traffic, coordinate resources, and maintain human connections across the void. If you know operators, coordinate now. Information becomes currency when normal channels fail. Time-sensitive actions for the next 24 hours. Fill prescriptions. Withdraw cash. Fuel vehicles. Charge everything. Buy batteries. Secure water. Insulate pipes. Test generators. Prepare warm rooms. Download maps. Contact family. These actions cannot wait. Tomorrow begins the window where preparation becomes impossible. Spiritual preparation matters regardless of faith tradition. Disasters strip away life's distractions, leaving core questions of meaning and mortality. Whether through prayer, meditation, or reflection, prepare your spirit for trials ahead. Inner strength sustains when outer comforts vanish. Peace of mind is survival equipment too. The aftermath economy will be unrecognizable, cash-only transactions, barter systems emerging, services valued over goods, skills trumping credentials, manual labor commanding premium prices. The prepared who help rebuild will prosper. The unprepared who survive will struggle. Position yourself now for the world that emerges. International observers are watching America face this crisis. Our response determines global perceptions of American resilience. Enemies assess our vulnerabilities. Allies evaluate our strength. Markets judge our stability. How we handle this natural disaster influences geopolitical calculations for decades. National pride demands personal preparation. Children traumatized by extended disasters carry psychological scars into adulthood. Protect their mental health through routine, distraction, and hope. Explain honestly but age appropriately. Involve them in preparations to build confidence. Their resilience comes from seeing parents handle crisis competently. You're teaching survival skills for life. Final weather update as of this recording. The Arctic air mass accelerated. Impact times moved up 6 hours. The bomb cyclone deepened beyond model predictions. Moisture content exceeded calculations. Everything I've described is now conservative. Reality may exceed worst-case scenarios. Act immediately or accept consequences. Here's my personal plea. I've dedicated my life to weather forecasting. I've never issued